Morning. Hope you all had a good weekend. I just wanted to do a video, and there's comments, and someone, Jay Freeman, commented on about an octopus, and I thought, okay, maybe it's time for me to tell the weird, very crazy thing. I said a few videos ago that was something really weird and crazy that I wanted to share, but I'll do it in another video. And so I thought, I saw that today, him talking about an octopus, about symbols of octopuses everywhere, and what does it mean? Okay. I was working on this gentleman, and it came to light that we have a consciousness that, comes from our, comes through our heart. It creates the balls of consciousness in our belly, and then in our bodies, and then at the belly it splits into male and female consciousness, and then connects up to universal energies in Gaia. And sorry, my cat. And however, I see another line of energy, and this line is a very black line on people, and it can be attached anywhere on the body, like through the whole body to attached to the hip. It's usually attached on the left-hand side for some reason. I've never seen it attached on the right-hand side. And it's a line of black, and it's a line of trauma energy. It's just complete trauma. And I was like, where does this attach to? And because it attaches on the outside of the matrix, and the black magicians and the elite use this trauma to they want to set this trauma off, so then you'll skip into a different consciousness and then a programmed state of being, and so they use it to their advantage. However, what's keeping this trauma in place is crazy to say. Well, so you've got the egg-shaped hollow dome, the matrix, which there's many matrices. There's at least 12 matrices that I've seen, and inside that surrounding this matrix is an electrical box. Inside this electrical box, at the top there's a program, a huge program, which radiates abuse, control, and manipulation. And then inside this electrical box is a giant octopus, which feeds off all the trauma that and keeps the trauma in place. So basically the trauma gets recycled through our own pure consciousness to keep going, and is always attached to us naturally. So there's no matrix or anything like that, and we went through a trauma, it would naturally disperse like smoke and disappear. But this trauma is kept in place, and what's feeding off this trauma is an octopus. So you imagine, right? So I'm conducting this this session, and I'm like, oh my god, there's a giant octopus outside the matrix. And anyway, so I was like, I need to go and speak to the octopus, and it's a female octopus, and she's in a real. She doesn't know who created her. She doesn't know why she's there. She's stuck in. She can't escape. She's stuck in the electrical cube, and she restricts and retracts because she's getting electrocuted one side. But then she's been made to feed off this trauma. This is not how she'd naturally get her energy. And she's very, very tired. She's got no energy. She's a mess. So this why Jay might be. Jay was mentioning octopus symbolism everywhere, and if it's everywhere, then I'm sure the elite know about this octopus. And I think what came in through the journey is that it was an experiment that went very, very wrong. But I mean, I want I would ideally like to take the program off at the top of the box, electrical box, but it's at some point everyone's chosen to be here, so I can't play God and take it off. We've all chosen to be in this reality. However, this, you know, because if I take it off, it affects all, and people haven't asked for it. Me and my partner have had many debates about this, but the octopus wants to be free, so it's looking at freeing this octopus from the electrical box. However we do that, and see what happens. And then what I assume is that the trauma that is attached to us won't have anything, will naturally detach, because there's nothing there to keep it in place, because it's the octopus that keeps the trauma in place. Yeah, so that's my crazy understanding at the moment. If you thought I was crazy, now you probably think I'm even more crazy. But yeah, that's just what I see and understand at the minute, and I'll keep you informed as time goes by on what happens, and how we do this. Well, how we free the octopus. Got to free a giant octopus. Okay, thanks. You take care. Bye.
The attacks came from octopuses. So I've been regularly removing octopuses clinging to my heart space. Okay, like literally my heart space. There was a huge octopus on it. I had to go in and stab it with my feather. You can actually use a kitchen knife too. Okay, so stab it and kind of yank it off. This is all in the astral, by the way. Astral is you work with your imagination. That's how everything works. That's how remote viewing works. That's how shamanic healing works. That's how everything works. Stab that octopus away. And that was also here in my head. Stab it and just take it. And then there was also a lot of attacks on my sacral chakra. So I know they're trying to get to our creativity. I'm not the only one who's experiencing sacral chakra attacks right now. I've talked to a few other women, and I was like, hey, did you have your period early, like substantially early, not just a day or two, but actually up to a week earlier, which for people who are in irregular periods, that is very unusual. Okay, if you're not on a regular period cycle, whatever. And I want to talk about the cycles of women in a different video. It's very important. But I actually talked to a few, and I was like, because, you know, my friend, one of my friends was like, yes, she got it like up to 5 days earlier. Very, very unusual. And it's just been very irregular over these past 2 months. Like sometimes you get it almost a week later, and then sometimes you get it almost a week earlier. So that's, for me, that's a sacral chakra attack. They're really trying to mess with our sacral energy. With that sacral creativity, you know, and for women, that's how you can kind of tell. For men, you wouldn't be able to tell in that way. You would probably be able to tell in other ways. It would be around, you know, that womb area. So I don't know, like I haven't really gotten much for men on that specific part. I focus more on the feminine aspect of it. So I've been regularly removing octopuses from my heart space, and that's coming from these AI entities. So I'm not saying, once again, I'm not saying these spiritual leaders are putting octopuses on me. These spiritual leaders actually don't know what's going on at all. If you don't know what a clone body is or a robotoid is, and you have 1 million followers on your account, you don't know what's going on in this world at all, in my opinion, okay? So these leaders don't know how they're being controlled, that they themselves are these empty, soulless vessels. And it's fine if they want to make fun about it, that's cool. That's definitely not, you know, the followers that I need, you know, that's not coming, like their followers are AI themselves. So obviously they wouldn't really want to know about these concepts. But I've been removing the entities that control these spiritual teachers, spiritual leaders. They've been putting octopuses on me, in addition to putting a bunch of attacks towards me, okay? So I have to regularly remove octopuses lately over these past 3 or 4 days already. Even before I actually exposed these beings, they were already kind of hovering around me, but they came flying in like the moment that post actually happened. So that's very interesting, because in 2019, I think it was like in March or April, I put another post on my Instagram saying the octopuses are actually from the octopus planet. And back then, you know, I got a little bit of a different insight on it because I myself wasn't open to the fact that pretty much everything's AI. You know, the mantis beings are AI, the octopuses are AI, the Zeta Greys are AI, like all of this is basically AI. But now what I'm seeing is it's a planet, just like the red Robotoid planet. You know, when I was once attacked for a friend putting voodoo on me, he animated all these little robots or bots from a red planet and literally attacking me. And that's how his little voodoo attack actually happened. So this time it came from the Octopus planet, and they're, you know, probably still have to remove them over the next few days or whatever, but they're literally like just clinging. And the thing is, they cling to your heart so strongly that your heart is actually affected. Your heart is one of the most precious things you have, especially if you do have a soul, because when you're in your heart space, which is very, very important for people to be in their heart space right now, especially with all the brainwashing that's going on in the mainstream, with all the brainwashing that's coming from other people around you too. When you're in your heart space, you're in your truth. Okay, so I always try to be in my heart space before doing these videos, because that's how you find your truth. Them trying to put something over my heart space energetically is a huge psychic attack energetically. Okay, so I think that's what I had to say on the octopuses for now.
You see, one of the things which that I was monitoring was, why was there such a tendency for people to get extremely angry?
Yeah.
And I noticed during one of the early Christmas parties, just when Sky took over what became called Athena Court, which was a new building which had been built right outside Sky's initial 3 small buildings where it started. And there was a Christmas party going on, and I noticed a large creature in the sky.
In the sky?
It was up in the sky. It was like a massive type, extremely angry jellyfish type thing. This was an etheric life form, about 4 times the size of the main building. Huge. And at the time, Murdoch and the senior staff were standing in the party, and everybody was having a very good time. And I could see a large number, well, when I say a large number, maybe half a dozen black shadow entities standing amongst and beside Murdoch's team and amongst the party. And this was on the forecourt, the whole forecourt of Athena Court. And I think this was probably around about 2000. No, it would have been a lot earlier than that. That building was brought online quite a long time ago. Anyway, the point was, it was when they used to hold Sky Christmas parties at the front of that building, which then became the headquarters of Sky TV. That was the main iconic big building, very nice. That's when Sam Chisholm was the managing director then, and he hated the opulence. And the building had lots of lovely marble, and that was all removed, taken out of the way to make Sky into a plain, not squandering and throwing money away, but the point is that cost a fortune to remove. So.
Yeah.
So the point was that I witnessed this. I, basically said, holy.
Did anybody else see?
The point was, it was noticed, and it was noticed by a team of people that I happen to know, and they lived in Essex. Of way actually North Suffolk, and they actually were fully aware of what was going on. Oh, Chewy, could you just walk across this side?
Yeah, but it wasn't right. Can see it. I'm sorry.
Okay,
can
Chewy.
you repeat that? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Chewy.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Continue. Could you repeat?
So the point was that the event that I noticed with the black shadow entities beside Murdoch's team, and this huge multi-tendrilled monstrous creature being, the giant octopus type thing.
Okay.
That was actually noticed by a team of people in Suffolk, North Suffolk.
Yeah.
And I happened to notice
from North Suffolk.
They were in North Suffolk at the time, and they noticed that a major event had happened. They actually monitored these types of creatures and life forces and beings and events, and they noticed this event had happened at Australia independently. So for some time I'd been noticing this type of stuff, and then I noticed that every time you came into work for Sky, just as you came in to the main area where Sky was at the time, you got really angry. You just started, you got consumed with this hate and rage.
Oh my God.
And people would come in and they bring that energy into the studios, into the building. So for a very long time I noticed somebody was using Sky as a black energy propagator. And subsequently, many years later when we started the Energy 106, the pirate station on the border, which was basically a restart of KISS FM, and my friend was abducted 4 times, and that's when I also noticed these black energy life forms inside the actual transmitter itself. And if I just get this little prop, and this is the final output valve of the transmitter, and this has got 7,500 volts on it, and it's got forced air going through it, and this would, when there was a problem, I'd have to take the cabinet off, and for a few seconds, once you took that outer cabinet plate off.
Yeah. You mean this?
No, the actual outside.
Okay.
A large metal
Case. Yeah.
case covering, but this is in a sealed unit which is pressurized with air, and it's also keep the RF in.
Okay.
Once you take that off, there was a few seconds when you could see a huge, fuzzy, multi-legged creature on the valve.
Oh, God.
Okay? Now the point about this is the final output stage. This is the final interface between RF and the antennas. Okay, basically. So this thing would then move out of the way and just crawl away and disappear. Now the point about this is I had a clue what this thing was. And it was many years later that we also noticed there was a number of dimensional effects where you had temporal and dimensional anomalies where you had the cubic nature of the container would change. So dimensional space was becoming fluidic, what I call fluidic space.
Yeah.
And I noticed this was going on at Sky as well. And I started to douse the areas, and then the whole Sky newsroom had these long lines of this energy in them. And it happened to coincide with where all the people were sitting. And we also had a situation where there were certain times of days when the computers would go wrong, and also the certain computers and certain graphic devices and things would fail. And it kept on failing at exactly the same time. So somebody was doing something.
Yeah.
So then I was eventually, cutting a long story short, I was appointed to go and sort out the problem with Sky News in Dublin, which was a new operation which was built at the time.
Which had the same problem.
Well, it was having a lot of trouble with their servers, and their stuff would fail. So the project was in jeopardy, so I got a guy who could analyse the actual electricity supply, because this is something we noticed at Sky, where the electricity supply had a lot of corruptions, and the earthing was wrong, and there was lots of problems that way. So cutting a long story short, I could see that the pulses on the electricity supply approximated the same kind of pulses that you'd expect if you were monitoring neural activity, brain activity.
Wow.
So the comparison between the type of spikes on the electricity at Sky News Dublin and the kind of spikes that you would get on if you looked at when neurons fire and activate was similar.
Okay. As with an EEG.
As with an EEG.
Okay.
So the point about this is that I then postulated that the electricity supply system was actually part of a neural net, an intelligent network like of nerves, and it was therefore these types of tendrilic creatures were perhaps some kind of neuron in free space, some kind of virtual space neuron. So the long tendrils that you're looking at were possibly in the same way as you look at a neuron in the brain.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a similarity there.
Yeah.
So what I felt was that the electricity supply system had been deliberately engineered as a form of early intelligence. jump the next stage up, you then have the intranet. That behaves like a neural net, because we monitored that the computer systems would respond to thought. And I used to test this by playing on an ordinary 486, or even at the older ones, 386s, video games.
Yeah.
The video game performance would alter dependent on the type of thought that you're dealing with.
Wow. I've always thought computers
so these are really old systems.
responded to thought.
So the point was that the computers are alive, and they're actually operating in a different domain, and they use the video games as a mechanism for accessing your consciousness, and then they play with your game and they let you win.
Like the
So these
Matrix.
are pretty simple video games. Now the point is that these mobile phones and things that we've got now, they're beginning to be telepathic. So for instance, on the predictive text, it will then come up with the next word that fits.
Yeah.
And that means that the phones are actually cognicizing your cognizance and understanding your thoughts. So the point about this
I
is,
never understood that.
the thing about this is that, I mean, Princeton University's done things like this, where you can actually telepath to the computer and it will write, you actually think to it and it will write script on you can actually think to it and create pages of text. And they've got a particular type of lamp where if you telepath to the lamp, your consciousness will control the brightness and colour of the lamp. And that's one of the simple experiments they've got.
Okay, that worked.
And it works. So the point is that essentially I then realised that whatever was going on at Sky was involving an intelligence which did not want to be seen. Then I noticed a large number of my friends and colleagues would start having problems with guidance and their ability to actually stay upright, and it was a problem with the left shoulder.
Good God.
Oh my
And I called that the sting of the black octopus.
Oh gosh.
Because when you went into work, I could actually see what looked like a massive sea anemone type creature sitting right opposite the front of Sky with its tendrils going right through corridors. And you could actually feel it as you walked across the site. You felt it like walking through thick, heavy water.
Wow.
And
You know when you're walking in the sea and you want to walk,
Yeah.
it's like a little bit like something was dragging.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you noticed this at the BBC when you were working
Well, at the
there,
BBC in 1980, I was at the BBC until 88, or
Okay.
really technically left in March 88.
It's too early.
So I hadn't noticed that. But the one thing about the BBC is they all look sucked dry and they're very pallid and drained looking people at the BBC. They're very
Yes.
dull. BBC staff are very notoriously unexciting and pallid. They have a dullness about them. So the point about this culminating very to the end, I noticed that when the new studio was being built, Sky took a long time to build its new Harlequin building.
Yeah.
And the point about it is it's actually over. One of the reasons why it was delayed for so long, because Project Sky would be given a very short period of time to do it, would all happen really quickly. And there's two major projects which didn't do that. One was the conversion of the Sky News building, and I noticed there was a portal on the far side of the Sky News building, which they bought that in British Telecom, and British Telecom previously, it was some kind of backup for the city in that terms of that building. And it was also the only building in the Sky Sign Lane area which was actually wholly owned. All the other buildings were leased. So the point about that is nothing could be done with that building. They weren't allowed to change it in any way, so that gave a lot of problems from the technical side of actually creating a studio, because in terms of building a studio you don't want a whole lot of supports in the middle of your shop. So that limited the structure of the roof and made a whole pile of problems that way.
Yeah.
Whereas it would have been easier to simply knock the place down and to put a structure up, custom built structure, which would have worked much easier in terms of studio.
Yeah.
To the extent that if you actually want to move one of the lights, you have to go back to the main architects. They have to do certain stress calculations to determine if you can move a light,
Yeah.
because it's right up to that level. In fact, if they get heavy snow and a lot of water on that roof, it could collapse.
Oh gosh.
But that's how crazy the situation is.
Yeah.
But the point was that I'd noticed a dimensional portal, a distortion of the space-time, fluidic space, and the same kind of stuff I'd experiencing at Alien Mountain, where you had fluidic space, and that was at the back of Sky News, the building which subsequently, years later, around about 2000, became
So
the new
today
Sky
I
News.
want to discuss the mind control demon that is a common spirit that's also identified by the name of octopus spirit or squid spirit. So what is this spirit, or what is this demon? It is a demon that sits on the top of your head and has tentacles that reach over your brain, causing you to feel heaviness, oppression, depression, weakness, tiredness, stress, strain, even delusion. It makes you feel even sluggish. You even feel that you can't think. It affects your eyes. It may even feel like a band or oppression that's around your head or eyes. It also tries to control your thinking, telling you to do things you normally would not do. See, these mind control spirits are linked to, I suppose, the octopus and squid because of the tentacles that grasp and control the mind. See, deliverance from mind control releases a person from mental pressure, mental pain, confusion, and mental torment. These mind control spirits can enter through listening to ungodly music, reading occult books, pornography, false teaching, false religions, drugs, passivity, and also, I believe, from modern day entertainment, social media, all the lies that the enemy is using right now as we see. So let's take a look at the tentacles on the octopus in particular. See, these are slender, flexible, and they're used for feeling or grasping. So tentacles are found on creatures such as the topic today on octopus and squid. So mind control spirits resemble these creatures in the spiritual realm and also have tentacles for feeling and grasping, as we've seen from the natural. So in spiritual warfare, these tentacles need to be severed from the minds of those affected by mind control. I believe many people need to be delivered of this, especially in this particular hour. So mind control spirits can control the mind and affect the way a person thinks. If evil spirits can control the thoughts, they can defeat the individual and even cause them and some to have mental breakdowns and also mental health issues. That's why we're finding many people are having breakdowns, are having mental health issues, and so forth. See, these spirits can vary in size based on the stronghold that they create, and they also work in groupings, precious saints. People can have multiple depending on the disorder or depending on the condition. Either big ones, little ones inside your brain, which only will come out by spiritual warfare and the renewing of your mind through the Word of God. See, when it's inside your mind, it has tentacles with suckers on the bottom that try and suck the very life, the spiritual life, out of a person, especially out of their brain. So a lot of people can have issues in that particular area. See, once it gets a hold of someone, even though you may have been delivered from, say, a past addiction, maybe it was masturbation, maybe it was drugs, maybe it was alcohol, whatever it might have been, it will try and come back and get you back into it again, into that same bondage through these intrusive thoughts that come. See, only deliverance and the helmet of salvation and the blood of Jesus, the name of Jesus, can get it out and keep it out. These spirits are part of the marine kingdom. And I believe that many cults, many people are being brainwashed in this particular hour by this particular spirit with the strong delusion that is coming in these end times. Let's look at the fogginess. Many feel this fogginess as a result of this spirit, of this octopus spirit, which is injecting its ink into your mind. It causes confusion, just like with with a real octopus. The ink is a defensive mechanism. It also blinds their prey before it strikes, and it shields for it. So you need to cut off the tentacles and stop them from injecting the ink into us precious saints. See, when an octopus wraps itself around an object, it can be so tightly attached that it is visually impossible to even pry it off. Spiritually speaking, when a demonic entity like this is attached to someone, it can seem virtually impossible to be able to reach the person that's even affected. And that's why a lot of people struggle with this particular spirit. And it's very difficult to see them set free, but it is possible. The enemy holds people in such a tight grip that it's against their will. It forces itself upon them. Satan uses this force as mind control to cause spiritual blindness and control its victims. Fear is also a huge weapon from the enemy to cause mind control. Fear of a man is probably another issue that we should address also. But we'll find that pressure, we've talked about this over this last week, all the things that are happening right now, precious saints, they are part of the plan of the enemy to see people being controlled, to ultimately that they will take the mark of the beast, those that are left behind. Precious saints, it's time for us to confront this spirit of octopus, to confront these marine spirits, to confront these mind control, that we may see the deliverance of the Lord.
A DMT trip report posted by the user Blackclow to the DMT Nexus on the 2nd of November 2006. Hey guys, I've found this rather intense DMT trip report from another forum. It's pretty wild. I packed the pipe with weed, and then on the dope, I placed with my brother's miniature pocket knife blade what I thought to be a little bit of the brown crystally goo, about 3 match heads worth. I torched carefully above the cone and sucked for all it was worth. Firstly, before anything, I noticed that my head had disappeared. Well, rather it was more like it no longer had boundaries as such. Then, the ringing in my ears and the hideous rush of a vascular headache occurred. The ringing deepened and became richer, louder. Then, a great bell tolled. Ask not for whom it tolls. A terrified attempt to calm myself failed miserably, as the vibration shattered me into an infinitum. I was still sitting there in the garden, so I knew I could go further. Lacking bodily coordination, I dumped roughly half of what I had left on the foil. I had been told it was a gram, the whole thing. Put this on a similar cone to the first, and repeated the torching. This time, because I could no longer tell if I possessed lungs, I must have pulled down the whopper of a hit. And what happened next is very hard to describe. The fear went up 1,000 notches. My knuckles, if I still had them, would have certainly been white, like the light that was consuming my whole body. Blazing white light all around. Fortunately, the headache subsided with the second hit, and I felt ready to extend my senses to feel where I was and what was happening. I remembered the veil, like rubber, or the surface of jelly stretched in front of me. There were no geometric patterns, but a few weird fractals burnt like green fire from every surface I could see in the garden. I was in 2 places at once. It was so odd. And there was this veil like the surface of some deep pond before me. Then, something moved beyond it. Was that some sort of dorsal fin? I leaned forward to touch the surface of the membrane, and then what happened next, I swear, nearly killed me from its sheer bizarrity. From behind the white chair, or was it from inside it, a creature emerged. It was not a happy, smiley elf. To tell you the truth, I will not describe what I saw. It had innumerable tentacles. It was like a cross between some weird octopus or jellyfish. And the eyes. Oh my god, the eyes. I froze on the spot thinking, shit, this is it. I've really gone and done it now. Fucking toast. I never believed. I really should have believed. And now I'm at the mercy of something much, much bigger and complex, and clever, and definitely more malevolent than myself. I asked it its name, although I wish I had not asked. Its voice utterly destroyed me. It was like being caught in a storm of psychic noise, a whirlwind of deadly electrical shrapnel. I think I shuddered and started to drool uncontrollably at this point. I think I also urinated in my jeans. With its innumerable eyes, it gazed at me steady and extended a tendril. At that same moment, it fired a beam of light directly between and above my eyes. The alien laser was pinkish green. It hurt. I begged it to stop. I whimpered, "Please stop. You're hurting me. I'm just fragile. Please be careful. I'm sentient as well. I mean you no harm." It seemed to consider what I had to say for a brief moment. The laser was withdrawn, but the tendrils, of which there were more now, still held me in place. I was trying to make out details of its shape or structure, but the closer I looked, the more it slipped away from me. It seemed to tell me in some weird non-verbal fashion not to struggle, and to stop making noise with my eyes. I personally took this to mean, be calm, do not struggle, clear your head, see, but do not look. It then became a little clearer. It seemed to be cloaked in some way. Some sort of organic hood and covering was wrapped around it. Some sort of armour or protection. The tentacles had no substance as we know it, and the eyes, well, they were the most awe-inspiring and terrifying things I have ever beheld. They defied counting. They defied reason. This whole thing was too much, and I felt myself losing my mind. I just lost it. Gone. I can't recall all that much after this, except it rifling through my mind like it were a chest of drawers. Some rewiring took place. An awesome amount was uploaded to my cortex, and a sensation not unlike being at the dentist while being semi-conscious from nitrous. This sense of voices telling you it'll be all over soon, and that you've done really well. Really well. Hush, hush now. Then, when I was able, and the pinkish greenish light was withdrawn, I felt I could once again move. The creature had split into three, or maybe it had always been three, and there were several smaller blobs that were crawling around my feet. They seemed to be trying to sneak up on me. Fuck that, I thought, and kept a close eye on them, lest they molest me like their larger, scarier accomplice. It was at this point that I realised that the blobs were not the same as the other creature or creatures. They were entirely different, extremely tricky and fast-moving. One of them crawled up my leg and sat on my knee. Frankly, I was too horrified and fascinated to stop it. I noticed it had a little hat. It had little stripy white and green trousers as well, and pointy, curly shoes. But at this point, let's just say I wasn't at home anymore. They seemed friendly enough, and I let them crawl inside my nose and ears and chest and legs and, well, whatever it was they wanted to enter. Eventually, it all faded, and further attempts to enter the world were prohibited. It seemed I'd been barred for now. Just a headache and a sensation of, no, No. Okay, just typing that out has made me feel all weird, and I need a stiff drink after that. Thank you, and good night. Oh, but before I go, I must say that, no, I had not read many DMT trip reports prior to this. This is what I truly find disturbing about it all. Frankly, I do not require another's belief that this really happened to me. I can barely get my head around it myself. Why elves? Why elves, damn it? And what's with the Philip K. Dick type entity? I swear, I had not been exposed to those particular stories before this experience. What really intrigues me about this trip report is that over the years I've seen people encounter this octopus entity, again, whether it's real or not, hallucination, a real being occupying some other dimension, whatever. At the end of the day, people have experienced this, and there's so many other people out there on the internet who've talked about similar experiences, or, octopus type beings, which is interesting because obviously in the human physical reality, octopi are some of the most intelligent animals going. So there's a really interesting post on the Psychonauts subreddit 5 years ago by that one guy, 0311, who says, I recently met an octopus entity during a mushroom trip, as anyone else, and it does share some similarities to the way that it went down in this report, although a bit more positive and less malevolent. So he took 4 grams of magic mushies and says that the octopus did not speak, but communicated in a way that I still understood. It said, welcome. Please enjoy this experience with me. We are all vibrations, and not every vibration gets a body. You have a body, and you must take care of us. The purpose of life is to experience reality through sensory organs. Pleasure, pain, and everything in between is good. You're going to miss your body when it dies, so enjoy it while you have it. It also said, reproduction is important, because we need more bodies to bond with so that we can experience them. It also said, I am the universe, and I am you, and you are me. Then there was a lot of spoken tongues I didn't understand. One word that kept repeating was Yibra. What's interesting about this post is more so the top comment on it by Dr. John, who says, when I did DMT, I met an octopus as well. When the breakthrough came, it was like someone pulled the plug out of the bathtub of reality. Everything collapsed into the middle of the room, and I felt some sort of being guide my spirit into this pod. When I was inside, it took off at insane speeds. I felt like the pod wasn't pressurized for a human, because I was extremely hot and I felt crushed by the speed. I was flying through all of these orange fractals that I couldn't understand. But eventually I came out of it and realised I wasn't the only being travelling in a pod. There were pods everywhere. And the orange was this intergalactic ally huge octopus, I don't know what it's trying to say there, that was using its tentacles to throw us through these invisible tubes. Last time I did a sensory deprivation float on LSD, I had tentacles coming out of my back, like an angel's wings. After I had realised the true nature of the trees, the forest became like a living world of intelligence around me. It was incredible. I was amazed at what I was experiencing. I was totally lost in it. I was given a tour of all the features of the wood places that would look like ordinary forest parts to the normal eye, but to me and my woodland friends I saw cities, roads and palaces. After a time they brought me to a deep part of the woods, a dense area of pine and yew, very dark and brooding. This, I was informed, was the dark forest, a place of trees that had gone evil, lost their light and hated men. If I entered, I was warned I would go insane. They would take my soul and show me terrifying visions. The place oozed horror, and as I gazed in I saw some monsters lurking in the darkness. I turned away from the dark woods and headed back towards our camp. I eventually found everyone and attempted to tell them about my adventure. Most people just ignored me, telling me to shut up. No one was experiencing anything like what I was. So a little put out, I returned to my forest world. My mate, who I will call Kay, came with me, and as we walked, I described the world that I had seen. Kay started to make up his own ideas to add to the story, as if what I was experiencing I was making up, as a story. Kay was annoying me intensely by adding his ideas. He seemed like a fool who didn't realise that what I was telling him was real. So eventually I told him to piss off. He obviously was a bit put out, but then he should have realised what I was going through. Now things really started to heaten up. The forest enveloped me more than ever, but I felt that there was more to come. I came upon the dark forest again and realised that the dark woods were a gateway into the heart of this forest trip. I figured that if I could enter and pass through the dark forest, then I would discover something incredible on the other side. So I set off. As I walked, more like stumbled now, the evil forces of the dark forest tried to entice me. They tried to lock me inside their trunks. They showed me the trapped souls of men who had fallen prey to them, twisting visions in the corner of my eyes of screaming, tortured souls. I felt hands pull at my back. At one point I had an incredibly realistic hallucination of a man running up behind me with an axe, screaming as he hit me. I turned in shock and he vanished. I saw all sorts of beasts and monsters stalking on either side. Fallen trunks and old stumps became wolves and demons, chasing me deeper into the wood. This was terrifying. I felt like I was on my last legs, and at any moment would collapse and die, my soul being ripped from inside by the devilish forces around me. I came delirious upon an old twisted stump of a yew standing alone in a clearing. It became a living and twisted old hag at the centre of this dark place. It cackled at me, telling me to turn back or die, then became like 1,000 snakes and melted into the undergrowth. Despite all of this, I pressed on, determined now to find an end to this evil place. Then, as the terror of the dark forest reached a crescendo, I emerged into a light clearing, and before me was a massive old tree. An ancient face seemed to appear in its bark, and it spoke in a solemn voice that was soothing and yet all-encompassing. It certainly didn't speak in English, but in my delirium I could understand it perfectly. It explained that I had reached the heart of this trip, and that all I was experiencing was a part of my own unconscious mind. The fairies were personifications of my own character, and he, the tree, was the core of my being, the voice in my head, a voice of reason. I had been through the darkest recesses of my mind to get there, yet my mind was vast as the forest around me, and that wherever I went from now on, I would be within my own mind, and could, if I chose to, learn more of myself the further I ventured. Everything the tree communicated made sense, and the vision of the fairies seemed to fall into place around me. I pressed on into the wood, determined to find something. By this time I was extremely fatigued. I was staggering around, talking to myself in the trees, and must have looked a right mess. The whole experience became more and more unpleasant. The woodsman seemed to have pissed off, and I kept thinking wild fairies who lived in the bushes were coming out and poking me and whispering about me behind their backs. Suddenly I found myself in a clearing. 2 huge trees had fallen down side by side. One had opened up a cave-like hole with its roots, and the other had gone the other way, its branches flailing in the air. I stared at this vision, and as I did, the cave deepened, becoming a long, infinite tunnel, and the fallen tree writhed around like the tentacles of an octopus. I almost dropped to my knees with an overwhelming sensation that I had found something meaningful. The dark cave and the octopus. What it meant I didn't know, and still don't. Yet this was it, the end.